Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Automation Nation inside Barnum. We're here the week of July 4th, and we had a special guest from Lenze fly in to talk to us about some gear motors, VFDs. Lenze's got a whole new line together that are built in the USA products. So we are just going to do a whole rundown on that, as much information as we can on them here in about 30 minutes. And we got some exciting stuff with these. So, welcome to Barnum, Riley. I think you've been here once or twice
Yep.
before, but thanks for showing up to do this with me. Um, what do you do with Lenze? Why'd you come over here?
So my name is Riley Schrader. I'm the Director of Business Development for Lenze North America. I work with our industry segment managers, our product managers, and then very closely with our marketing team as we really set the stage for where Lenze is trying to go moving forward.
Sure. So, really, I guess our main thing here is this B.L.U line with Lenze. Um, what has been your role with this? And I guess what is the B.L.U line?
Yeah, so the B.L.U Line we're really excited about. The B.L.U Line is built locally in the U.S. It's this gear motor portfolio. Lenze globally is a very large supplier of gear motors,
Hmm.
but trying to figure out ways that we can better serve our customers in the North American market. One of the challenges that we've had is in the past we were getting gear motors built in Europe and shipped over. Lead time wise, we really weren't able to be competitive. Really for the last since I've been with Lenze for 2.5 years, we've been brainstorming ways that we can better serve the customers, with this gear motor portfolio. And the B.L.U Line is what we launched for this, subset of our portfolio where we're going to be building them in our Uxbridge, Massachusetts facility with lead times, 4 weeks or less, and really be able to fill a need for the market in terms of quick delivery at the gear motor portfolio.
Sure. Well, that's big because that's something specifically our customers and our salesmen like to flaunt is the availability
Mm-hmm.
of our products, whether we're stocking them or our suppliers can build them fast or have local stock or just U.S. stock in general. And bringing some of that here is awesome because Lenses already has a lot of their product that is built in Massachusetts out there. A lot of their VFD lines, things like that as well, right?
Yeah, and I think that's
So,
what makes us a little bit unique is we're building a lot of the electronics in the U.S. And if you look at a lot of the competitors in the space, they've offboarded building electronics to other places in the world, and we've been building electronics in the U.S. for decades, and so you know we kind of had the hard part solved first, I'd say, in terms of building electronics locally. And so now by bringing the gear motors over, you can get a gear motor like we see here in short lead time. You can also get this complete drive package of the gearbox, the motor, and the motor mounted VFD, within that 4 week lead time. And I think it really fits into our broader strategy as an organization as we try to grow is increasing local for local manufacturing and bringing all
mhm,
of these products closer to our customer base. As you mentioned, speeds important. The Amazon effect, people expect and want to get things quickly, and
absolutely.
we need to make the investments as an organization to make sure we can fulfill that.
Hmm. Now, when you say you guys have been, for a while building electronics locally, really shined during the pandemic. I mean, that was something that even us as a company here as Barnum was able to capitalize on exponentially when just there was so much people could not get, whether it was coming from overseas or just shortages of things. But Lenza was available and Lenza prepared for all that, and this stuff was available in the US. And man, were we able to help a lot of customers out with a quality product that was built here, that was available. I mean, because manufacturing never shut down. Everything
Correct.
else was shut down. Manufacturing never shut down. So
Yep.
a lot of our products and stuff still need to go out. And now having another thing under that blanket, which is now the motors and gearboxes and other types of drives or whole combinations, is not only like, is it available now? Yes, but like that's also kind of an insurance for if some crazy situation ever happens again
For sure.
for our market, for a US market.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody learned a lot, throughout that pandemic, but making sure we have a diverse supply chain and a lot of options for components as we launch new products has been
Mhm.
a big strategy for us.
So we call this new gear motor portfolio the B.L.U Line,
Mm-hmm.
B.L.U. It's an acronym. What does that actually stand for? It's
Built locally in the U.S. So not the most creative acronym in the world, but something that stuck pretty quickly as we started talking about it.
No, I mean it works good. I mean, I mean, if you don't have, assembled or made in America type of thing, a lot of people will scoff at you now. Like
Yep.
that's the how the world is going. Well, not the world. That's how our country's going. A lot of
Yep.
people want to see stuff made here, and it's a nice flex, I
Yeah.
guess. um, so overall, in that B.L.U Line portfolio, what are the general items that fall under that? What's new to that, and like what is?
Yep. So the subset that we're starting with is really our fractional horsepower up to 3 horsepower. So the motor sizes, you're looking at 1/6 horsepower up to 3 horsepower. On the gearbox size, you have our helical bevels. You also have an inline gearbox as well as a shaft mounted gearbox. So 3 different gearbox configurations, all available up to 3 horsepower. Gear ratios really get down 30 RPM and above, essentially, is where we're looking at speed wise with that B.L.U Line portfolio. So pretty closely stepped gear ratios available, so a lot of combinations. We have a landing page and an ordering guide that are linked into this podcast, where people can see all the exact ratios and things that are available stocked in Uxbridge. Like I said, it's a subset of our portfolio. So if you have customers that need a specific gear ratio that's not in the B.L.U Line, there's ways that we can work with them to accommodate that.
Yeah, this is mainly like your quick order guide. These
Yep.
are the high volume items, the most practical ones for the market. That obviously you guys have probably done more than enough research
Yep.
to know these are the most well used styles, but that is not the limitations
Correct.
to what Lenze does. And I guess that's pretty important to at least point out is, what you see in the B.L.U Line, what's linked in the description of our podcast here, things like that. What you see is the in Uxbridge efficient setup that you guys have put,
Yep.
not all of it.
Correct. Yeah, there's if you look at gearboxes, there's a lot of different gear ratios available. They're very closely stepped. We picked the subset of that we feel like is going to most closely fit the market need. But if we have customers that need that really precise, accurate gear ratio that's not in the B.L.U Line, there's ways that we can adjust and plan and make that work for them moving forward.
Yep. I've seen some of the material you guys have put together already for this line, for customers, for suppliers to utilize to see what's available, how to order, what ordering codes, things like that. And you guys have really done a good job prepping that ahead of time. This is pretty new. I think you guys are kind of releasing this like this week, basically within the last couple weeks, maybe. I mean, it's fairly new, but you guys already have like a really nice interactive PDF where it lists majority of the models with a link right in the PDF that'll bring you to the spot on the website. That'll give you CAD information, cut sheets, everything right there. So there's no scrambling trying to figure out what's what. A distributor who is trying to sell these, any salesman should be able to have that in front of the customer and utilize that very efficiently instead of having to call your team always. Well, was this one of the stocked items or was this an option? No,
Yep.
I mean, it seems like it's really well put together already. A nice, easy sales tool for customers and salesmen in general.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to keep it simple, right? And I think that while it's new to being built in North America, these are products that we've sold globally for a very long time, and so our assembly cells are the same as the assembly cells in Europe. The jigs that we're using, the presses, it's all the same. So the quality Lenze gear motor that's been supplied globally for decades, it's the same product, it's the same assembly process, it's the same components. So that really made it very easy for us to integrate it locally.
Sure. So we said gearboxes, motors, and VFDs are all part of this. Is in that B.L.U Line, I know Lenze's got quite a selection of all of that in the VFD realm. Are we mainly focusing on the Motec for this B.L.U Line, or does it also fall under the category of the other ones with the ProTech or the in-cabinet drives?
Yep.
I mean, those seem to be already pretty readily available products, so it might not be a new news flash that they're available. But for the B.L.U Line specifically, is the combination more, this is the goal here?
Yeah, I think that really where we started with the B.L.U Line, the reason we picked this subset and with the Motec to begin with is really that the material handling industry is is the main industry that's adapted this decentralized VFD
Hmm.
technology, taking the VFD out of a cabinet, putting it on the motor, um, reducing the installation time that way, reducing the cable runs, making that setup easier. And so,
Yeah, I mean that is such a cool drive setup in general. Like when we show that to people who've never seen that before, and it gets a lot of talking points going, and there's a lot of interest just because it's unique.
for sure. And so I think, you can use a gear motor out of the B.L.U line and use a cabinet mount VFD. You're right. That cabinet mount VFD is already with a lead time less than 4 weeks. So that's obtainable. You can use that with the i5 ProTech series that's built in Uxbridge as well. So, the B.L.U line stuff that you're going to see is really tied to these gear motors
Hmm.
or the gear motor with the Motec, but the gear motor can operate off of any of our drives.
Yeah,
So
for sure. It's just a nice little point to show that it's not, you buy something from this, it's not limited to this. Like I
correct.
mean, a motor's a motor. You can use it with whoever's VFD technically. Obviously, the best pairing is another Lenze VFD, but
Yep.
motor's a motor. Um, so the I guess kind of looking at my notes on some things I want to ask you about here. Some of the some of the things here with the gearboxes
Hmm.
on these as making gear motors themselves. Um, I guess the what are the different types and what really sets this style apart from other manufacturers? Like,
Yeah, so we'll have an inline gearbox. We don't have one here, but a helical inline gearbox that the people can see on the documentation. Um, we have a parallel shaft or shaft mounted gearbox, which is similar but gives the ability to have a hollow bore mount directly to the machine. And then we have a helical bevel gearbox here, and so a right angle helical bevel. So I think the three big things is, you know, we prioritize efficient gearboxes.
mhm,
So all of the gearboxes that Lenze makes in this portfolio are 97% efficient, which is a big deal. You see a lot of worm gearboxes on the market that are less efficient, and if you go to size something properly, if you're using a more efficient gearbox, a lot of times then you can use a smaller horsepower motor, smaller horsepower VFD while still getting the same amount of torque. And so, really when we look at trends in the industry, reducing energy consumption is a big piece of that, right? And so I think that
absolutely.
the gear motors we're trying to work with are all helping obtain that. The Motec with its regenerative front end and eliminating brake resistors like that's an energy saving component. So you're trying to build products that fit the needs of the market moving forward. And I think the other main thing is all of these products are aluminum housing gearboxes and motors, and so they're lightweight, they're easy to handle, they're easy to install.
I
eh,
noticed that right away with like this guy, even though it's so small, the cutouts on this, it's really efficiently made to be more lightweight and slim instead of other versions like big cast iron box that are
Correct.
just bulky and heavy. And obviously, this is doing the same thing or better in a more efficient package. Even if you don't want to say the gearing's efficient, just the process of creating that and mounting that seems more
Yep,
efficient.
for sure, and try to make it versatile so it can be foot mounted. It has the tap holes for flanges, torque arms. It makes it very easy to mount the product in the field.
Hmm. No, it seems like a pretty nice unit, and it seems like these combos, like you said, are really going for a premium product, an efficient product, not just our version of what's already out there. There's more than enough motor manufacturers, more than enough gearbox manufacturers, but trying to set Lenza apart by ours are an efficient, a premium, or a unique combination with a decentralized package. So it is, you know, not just the same thing, different color.
Yeah, I think we're trying to provide a solution, right? And so I think that you know the industry is getting smarter. People are getting smarter. Total cost of ownership is becoming a big thing as opposed to just cost of components. And
Yep.
when you look at a gearbox with a motor with a VFD mounted to it, you know, compared to a gearbox and a motor and a cabinet mount VFD, this component may be more expensive, but when you start to take a look at eliminating or minimizing a cabinet size, and you start to look at reducing the length of your expensive cables,
Yeah. Those
coming
VFD
from a
cables.
panel, and especially when you get into bigger distribution centers and things, it provides a significant benefit to the industry.
Now you mentioned real quick on that Motec VFD there. just to slightly change gears, that Motec is also fairly new to Lenza.
Hmm.
I mean, there was an older Motec, but this is
Yep.
the new latest and greatest version. And you mentioned this Motec has like regenerative functionality on it, makes
Yep.
it more energy efficient. Can you give me a little Cliff Notes, rundown on that Motec? What makes that
Yeah. So
pretty special piece to the whole package here?
yeah. So I think the Motec has a couple really unique things that solve some industry trends, right? So one of them is the reducing energy consumption, which we talked about. So if you have an application, a decline conveyor or where the load is lessening, it's feeding power back. Most decentralized drives in the market now, they have a brake resistor. Brake resistor is essentially a hot pad that sits on the side of a conveyor and it burns off energy, right?
Yeah.
It's not only is it inefficient, it's also a safety issue for a lot of companies. They don't like their employees being able to potentially go and touch a brake resistor and burn themselves. So, there's a safety component of this, but essentially what this drive is doing then is when the drive is regenerating, it's feeding all that power back to the main power supply to be used by another VFD or to be used back by this VFD when it needs to power back up. So uh, think of it like an electric car, right? If you slow down a Tesla, it feeds power back to the batteries. And
Yeah.
so that's really what this is doing. So it helps with the energy efficiency piece. It also helps with the reducing installation time because you don't have that additional component that you have to wire and deal with and put together. And I think
It seems like there's a lot of disconnect too on those type of applications, trying to figure out exactly what type of braking resistor you need anyway.
and the
It's usually
size and
trial and failure to
yes,
figure out what braking resistor is going to work for the application.
yeah. So being able to eliminate that's awesome. And I think the other this drive being new, it's you know it's addressing a lot of the upcoming trends in the market. So it's now available with SIP safety. We're working on Safe IO that'll also be available on the Motec, and so a lot of the emerging trends we see in the industry are going to be built into this component.
And everything's quick connect on it. There's
Yep.
M12 connectors on it. I think programming ports USB-C, which is phenomenal. Finally moving into
Yep.
the current technology of USB. You got like the HonQ style connections on there, so it's
Yeah,
really
you can
easy for
daisy
just
chain power in and out. And I think one of the other things too is we look at like customers want to reduce their variance in the number of SKUs they have to buy, and so the communication protocol on this is parameter selectable. So if you have an OEM that's selling some conveyor systems in North America and then selling some in Europe,
yeah.
they can program this drive to be Ethernet. They can program it to be Profinet. They can do that just by selecting a parameter,
That's pretty big.
as opposed to having to
Yeah.
buy these different components. And as you talked about the supply chain challenges and chips, and by putting all these in one component, it also gives more flexibility that way, and
Yeah.
you're less worried about some of the effects we had a couple of years ago.
That is huge, especially our market itself, our salesmen, their territory is broad, and customers are programming with everything you can imagine under the sun. And us being like, well, yeah, the Ethernet ones are available, Profinet's not available,
Yep.
is not a concern anymore, which is awesome. I mean, that is a pretty darn cool drive, and that drive's available from the little guys all the way up. This one, what do we say? This one's probably about a three
This is a
horsepower
3 horsepower here. So yeah, I mean, like we said, the B.L.U Line is going to 3 horsepower, but we make Gearmotors significantly larger than that. The Motec itself is available up to 60 horsepower, either
pretty
in
big
either a
drive.
motor mount. You can also take the Motec and not have it mounted to the terminal box, and there's a wall mount bracket, and it can be mounted right to the side of a conveyor, a pump, or an application. So it doesn't have to be on the motor.
Yep. And that drive isn't solely specific to a Lenze motor. Like if you wanted
Correct.
a Motec to run someone else's motor, you
Yep.
could do that too. It's not. This is not built to be only married to a Lenze.
Correct.
It's pretty cool. It's a neat piece for sure. I guess changing gears again a little bit. I mean, we talked about the different sizes and everything. You mentioned at the beginning about a 4-week lead time on these
Mhm.
items. That seems to be pretty industry standard when you say stuff is stocked components. People just need to assemble things. 4 weeks is a pretty good expectation.
Yep.
A lot of things we're starting to see that new expectation is like 6 to 8. So being able to have 4 is a nice little gold star, it seems like, for the portfolio. What kind of process or what is Lenze doing to be able to try to hold that and promise that 4 week with this B.L.U Line? Because it seems like there's a lot of components, there's a lot of different things.
Yep.
I mean, is it just a overhead investment that Lenze is putting in, saying we're going to make sure where these parts are stocked, or is it a whole new process? Like how is that 4 weeks obtainable and future obtainable?
Yeah, so I think it's, definitely a significant investment up front, right? If we're going to launch this program and make it successful, we need to make sure that we have the inventory in place to facilitate the orders.
Mm-hmm.
I think definitely as we progress with this, talking to our distribution partners, talking to your customers, understanding and forecasting what projects they have coming up
Yep.
is going to be key. That's going to be, there's going to be need to be two-way communication on what is upcoming or what you think may be upcoming, and working with us to plan for that to make sure that we have our safety stock at the right levels. And
Because large material handling, things like that is usually a massive quantity of
Yeah.
items. So
Yep.
I mean, yeah, forecasting's pretty important,
For
especially
sure.
in that realm.
And as those big customers go through those engineering processes, if you're doing a distribution center with 500 gear motors, right? Like there's engineering work that needs to go into that. They may not be able to cut a PO until 6, 8, 10 weeks before they need something, but they're going to have an idea of what they need long before that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think as we're communicating with you guys and you guys are communicating with your customers, there's planning forms and things that we've put in place to make sure that we can maintain the right safety stock, put the right components in place, to make sure that we can fulfill those orders in that time frame. And we feel really confident about what we've done so far, and that we're going to be able to maintain that. And I think as you look at the gear motor, the gearbox, the motor, and the VFD, being able to get all that in 4 weeks is a industry leading lead time. There's people that can make gear motors very quickly. There's people that can make VFDs pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't many people that can get that complete package within 4 weeks.
Yep. Usually, someone's missing a certain component, and you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting for something.
Yep.
And the fact that you guys can do the whole package like that is a nice pat on the back, and it's going to make some people pretty happy, I think.
For sure.
One random question, I guess, on this.
Yeah.
It pops up every other day now. Is since this stuff is going to be assembled in the U.S., does any of that kind of wipe out any like tariff stuff, or a lot of the components still sourced, outside the state and stuff like that, and it's still gonna, we still have to deal with our politicians and still deal with tariffs and all that. Or is, that.
So I think as you look at the portfolio completely, I mean, like I said, we're investing in local for local manufacturing. So in the early stages of this, we get housings from Europe, we get gearing from Europe, we get the components from Europe. So there is currently, as of July 2nd, a minimal tariff impact. That'll probably change 15 times in the next couple months, but there is a minimal tariff impact. As this grows, we're definitely exploring different ways of, can we get different components made locally to help minimize or eliminate the impact of that. When you look at the Motec in launching that product, there's a lot of components that we've been able to source locally to minimize the tariff impact. So it's definitely part of a broader strategy.
That's what I was kind of alluding to. It seems like this seems like a baby step in the, let's kind of bring some of the stuff back here, avoid some of it, because it is a gray area. No one knows if that stuff's going to last, if it's going to go away. It's been so up and down in the last few months that people are just saying, well, you just need to move everything back to the U.S. or screw it, we're just going to charge everybody more, and it seems like bringing some of this in is at a nice time in that conversation where hey, we are making some steps to not have to pass a whole bunch of extra cost onto the consumer because we're planning, we're future planning.
Well, we've been pretty proactive about it well before tariffs was a thing, which has been nice. I mean, as we've looked at designing this Motec, it was built with a much more robust supply chain than VFDs in the past. That all happened pre-tariff situation, and so I think that it's really been a broader Lenze strategy over the last 5 years or so is increasing that local for local manufacturing and trying to identify how we can best serve our customer base, and quicker delivery and cost competitiveness are two of those pieces, right? And so I think it's part of a broader strategy, and I'm happy now that we started this years ago as opposed to being reactive and trying to figure it out in the last few months.
Well, that speaks too for Lenze as a whole. When Lenze is a German company at the end of the day, it's a European company, but the the hold that the U.S. market has and the headquarters in America for that
Mhm.
has really almost created two different teams. You got your European side and your American side, and it allows that group to kind of do their own thing and keep that manufacturing here or work on projects that satisfies the North American market more than what they're doing in Europe, because obviously things are going to be different here and there. A lot of
Yeah.
companies just say it's the same exact market everywhere. We're building this one product. Who cares who is using it? Where you get what you get.
Yep.
Lenze kind of almost seems like you got two different divisions in it, and it works well for the I guess our side of the consumer.
Yeah, and I think one of the nice things is we are a family-owned company, and so that gives us a lot more flexibility when we want to launch stuff like the B.L.U Line, right? We can make a bigger inventory investment than a lot of public companies would want to make. We can make sure that we're making the right decisions for the long-term success of this,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to trying to satisfy shareholders every quarter. And so,
Sure.
being a German company, but I think being a family-owned company is what's given us a lot of flexibility here, to make the right investments and ensure that this is successful.
Yeah. So I guess, the motors, gearboxes, pretty straightforward. Material handling customers, that's where the biggest thing we see them as. Is any advice on your side for like if our salesmen are listening or OEMs listening, who would be like good targets for this? Obviously, you say material handling, conveyor companies, but is
Yep.
there anything else that maybe we don't think of right off the bat for this style, that fractional horsepower, the 3 horsepower, decentralized stuff is a really good market for this to
Yeah, I
really
think
show this off?
yeah, I think the material handling one was the biggest one. Like I said, mainly because they already see the advantages of the decentralized drives.
Hmm.
Especially when you scale those over quantities of units, it becomes a very advantageous solution. So, conveyor OEMs is definitely was the original target. But as we've talked to different salespeople and looked at different applications, that fit kind of in this 3 horsepower and below portfolio, along with the gear ratios we've picked. Um, you look at like the quick vertical door applications that you see in a lot of distribution centers and warehouses. That's a viable target. If you look at overhead fans,
Yeah.
those are generally 3 horsepower and below.
What about
Inline
like a
gear
car wash?
motors. Yep,
Do we
car
see this in
wash
car wash?
definitely. Definitely in car washes, and then also like primarily the inline configuration, but also in pumps. We see them in a lot of pumping applications. So
Yeah, that's something I think we brought up, not this, but in the past when we've talked about like these VFDs and the Motec, Lenze's got some pretty awesome software built into these that if like you're doing a pump and fan application, it's a button click and it retunes that drive for that higher starting torque, things like
yep,
that for those style
yep,
applications without
exactly.
having to do any extra work or
Exactly. Yeah,
calling in the
there's
big
duty
guns.
modes in there that can make that more efficient, more practical.
No, these are pretty slick. But this guy in general, this is basically the highest, largest size of the B.L.U Line in general.
Yeah,
And that,
yeah. Currently, right? I think that
yeah, their
you know
plans maybe to expand bigger. I guess it's kind of just seeing market trends.
for
If
sure.
you're starting to see more 5, 10 horsepower become requested, you
Yeah,
know,
I think it's really for us. It's there's a piece of this of trying to balance the inventory and make sure that we're able to be robust with the um, selection that we put into the B.L.U Line originally. We didn't
yeah,
want it to be spread too thin and then run into inventory challenges. So we wanted to make sure that we were robust with this subsegment that's in the B.L.U Line initially. Um, but the goal is definitely to have this program be successful enough that we expand this to higher power ranges, expand this into larger gearboxes.
yep,
Um, that's 100% the goal. And so this is really the first step. But I think, you know, hopefully if we're sitting here 5 years from now talking about the B.L.U Line, the configurations available in the B.L.U Line have expanded significantly.
yeah. Just the looking at this one too. Does this one have a brake on it? Is that why
Yes.
this is larger?
Yep. Exactly. So you see
So
the bigger
brakes,
frame
brake
shroud.
brakes are available in that B.L.U Line too. That's not
Exactly.
like some weird adder that's going to add a bunch of lead time.
Nope. So yeah, holding brakes are available in the B.L.U Line. So yeah, it's the gearbox, the motors, the VFDs, holding brakes, all part of the B.L.U Line.
Really cool. Yeah, I guess too, like when we're talking about bigger sizes, things like that, usually customers, OEMs that are building very large equipment understand those pieces are going to take longer time. Just material in general,
For
things like
sure.
that. Like, yeah. But trying to make more items commodity, people can get them right away
Yep.
is the goal. Um, I guess kind of as a little bit of a wrap up, if we got salesmen listening to this that have never been, you know, comfortable with Lenze, like they're not as well versed in it, or they don't really know where to start on trying to sell these things or promote them to the
Yep.
customers, show them off. Um, any tips or tricks? Should they just be mainly working directly like with our Barnum Apps group, or is the documentation that you guys have put together pretty much well put together enough that they should just be able to start showing it off?
Yeah,
Or
they
is there
should.
any special conversation starters saying, is there a competitor that is real worthwhile? Let's do comparison.
I think the biggest thing I would say, so we have a landing page on our website that has all the details on the Blue Line. We have flyers that have all the configurations available. So I think
Mm-hmm.
from that piece, it's pretty good. I think that utilizing your applications team or our applications team, if a customer has an existing gear motor that they design that they use a lot of that they want to um, shift into the Blue Line, our engineers can help identify that configuration. I think the couple things I would say to the sales team out there is, one, gear motors are not drop-in replacements to each other. So this is, focus on OEM opportunities, not MRO opportunities. Trying to interchange one gear motor is really not going to be an effective use of your time because it'll likely have dimensional mounting differences that are going to
Yep.
cause it to be a challenge. So that'd be one. But I think really it's how can you provide a value added solution and solve your customer's problem. And so I think one of the big challenges or hurdles we see at in the MHL market specifically is a lot of the conveyor OEMs have standardized conveyor designs and sizes, regardless of what's being conveyed on those conveyors. And
Yep.
so, what we see a lot is when a company like an Amazon is talking about reducing their energy consumption and green initiatives, a lot of times they have conveyors in their facilities where the gear motor that's on the existing conveyor is completely oversized for what they're trying to do. And so if they then try to put a higher efficiency motor on it or do different things to reduce energy consumption, they're not seeing the benefits they originally thought that they were going to. And so we have some really nice software, drive sizing software, where if you put in information on the conveyor, the size, inclines, declines, load, it's going to give you the size gear motor that you need. And so I think if you're going in to have that conversation with the OEM about what they're conveying, a lot of times if there's some additional upfront engineering work to make sure it's sized effectively,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to see the payback in a more efficient solution, a more optimized solution, which will solve not only some benefits for the OEM, but it'll also help the end user achieve their goals when you start talking about energy consumption and variant reduction and the different things they're trying to achieve. So
That's a good point because just drop in replace trying to drop in and replace, do like general crosses of stuff probably doesn't, onesie twosies. That doesn't benefit long run, like you said. And
no, it's not going to be inefficient and effective use of people's time.
now is that software publicly available? Anyone
Yep.
can use that. They don't need a special Lenze permission to do that.
Correct. Nope. Anybody can use it,
Okay.
but definitely lean on our tech support team, our application engineers. The first time people are going to use that software, the 10th time people are going to use it. Like lean on that group. They can walk you through
Yeah.
it, make you comfortable with it. Talk to different things, but that's ultimately going to get you into that optimized solution for the application.
Yeah, that's a good way to approach it. I think if our applications team here hasn't played around with that much, we definitely need to get our hands in that, play around a little bit, get familiar with it, utilize that a little bit more out and about with our salesmen.
For sure.
Show that off a little bit. Even some of our technical salesmen, maybe we can do some pseudo trainings, teach them how to do that, just so the conversation can be more than just we have a replacement for so and so's motor.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. I mean, we've seen examples with different end users where we've done, studies with them on energy consumption and
Mhm.
stuff. And we've seen numerous examples of them having a 5 or 10 horsepower gear motor in an application where when you size it really only needs 1 or 2 horsepower.
That's
And it's a
over
significant,
time a
it's
very big
significant,
difference.
right? So it's a significant additional cost investment for them. It consumes a lot more energy.
And then you
it
double
creates a lot
down
of
with some
challenges.
regenerative energy. I mean,
Yeah, a bigger gearbox and a motor results in a bigger VFD, results in larger cables, or like there's a huge snowball effect with that.
yeah, I feel like that is really the realm of what Barnum likes to pride themselves on too with their salesmen is giving people that extra value added. I think every single podcast I've said the words value added
Mm-hmm.
because that is what Barnum tries to do, and doing more than just selling someone a hunk of aluminum and steel is how can we increase the value on this to you
For sure.
as an whole decentralized solution or a more efficient solution, or let's have our engineers do the work for you ahead of time so you're getting the right product and not just something that's always been on the books for years.
Yeah. I mean, we
So
talk about a lot with our team, right? Like a customer is only going to make a change, a wholesale change from one manufacturer to another if you can help them improve their sales, reduce their cost, improve their productivity, or improve their image. Like if
yeah,
you're not doing one of those things, they're not gonna make the change. So by optimizing this stuff, right, it helps them reduce their cost. It helps them promote new things to their customers so they can improve their sales.
yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of benefits to it.
I think this will be pretty good. I think our salesmen are going to have some fun with this, showing this off. A lot of potential. It's just great to hear these opportunities, and I think Barnum's really looking forward to, our Lenze partnership with you guys has been great with the VFDs and everything like that. This is just taking it one more step. So
Yeah, we're excited.
Lenze has been great with us, and we're excited to talk about this for sure.
Yeah, no, we're excited for it to grow and definitely excited for it to grow with Barnum.
Hopefully, the salesmen don't ask me to carry this one around for demos, though.
This one's a little lighter.
This one's a little beefy,
So yeah,
but this is a pretty good conversation. Learned a lot on this. I think whoever's listening should pick up some pretty good information on this. And again, there's a link to the landing page for this in the description of this. We have some interactive PDFs and other material. Reach out to either Lenze directly, reach out to your Barnum representative, our applications team, Lenze's applications team, and we are gonna really try to help on the solutions side of this and really get some people what they need. So thanks again for listening, and thanks for flying out here to do this with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
But I think we covered everything we could.
Cool.
Thank you again.
Thanks for your time.
And that's another episode of Automation Nation. We'll see you guys next time. And if you're listening to this before the 4th, happy 4th of July. We'll see you guys later.